Okay, before we go any further, what I would like to do is just kind of cruise through those items on the left-hand side over there and just go over a couple of things that I do in the beginning of every install. So we'll just kind of quickly go through them, and then we'll get back into doing more detailed things after that. So we've already played around with the dashboard, and we've already looked at screen options of ways that you can hide and show things. We have created a blog post, and we've messed with some categories. So we've done those first two things. But let's kind of take a little bit of a step back and do more general things. So one of the very first things I do, which we looked at in a previous video, but I'm going to go over it again, is permalinks. So the default for WordPress typically is this day and name thing, which is year, month, and date, and then the name of the post. What I typically do is I set a custom structure and I put blog in front of my blog posts. You can put whatever word you want in there. And that is just a way for my URL structure to, if it's a straight up page like this one right here, it's just going to say, home or about us or contact us or whatever the page name is. But if it's a blog, which is what this is asking about, then I create that custom structure and just put a /blog in there so that any of my blog posts are going to have that as a prefix in the URL. So that's one of the very first things I do. I do come into general and make sure that my address is accurate and that my URL, WordPress address, and site address, URL and URI, are the same. And then I generally either, if I'm building a site for a client and they don't have a tagline, I will just delete this because it's not necessary. It's a optional piece. And then the site title, as you know, that we've built is called map. So I'm going to leave that alone. You can come in here and actually set your time zone, which can be handy for when emails get sent out or if there's tracking of any kind of data on your site. If you're putting a blog post out and you want to schedule those blog posts, having the correct time zone is kind of a good idea. But in general, this stuff will kind of be default. I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. When it comes to writing, I really don't touch this at all. I let it be default. Reading, however, and we'll get back to this, but typically what I do is I do have a home page. So on a site, in general, if you don't touch anything, what WordPress will do is will show your latest posts. So if I right-click on this up in the little top left corner where it has the name of our site, and I either right-click and open up that, or I right-click on Visit Site and open that in a new tab, what we'll see is my Awesome Hike blog post. But if I scroll down to the bottom of that, all our great Cat Ipsum stuff, here's the other blog post. So here's that generic blog post that WordPress created. So in my reading settings, it is currently showing the latest posts. And then what will happen is it will actually show 10 posts. So it will show 10 of the most recent posts. And you can choose, of course, full text or summary. I think if I change that, I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen here, but it should trim that first one. Yeah, it didn't. I'd have to tell it that I want more text in there. So that's not going to work for that. But anyway. So in general, what I am more typically going to do is I'm going to build a home page for the client, and then their post page is going to be something else. So really quickly, because we've already gone through the how to create a new post, what I would do is I would come over here under Pages, I would click Add New, and then for our title, I'm going to call this the MAP homepage, and I'm going to publish that. And then just for kicks, I'm going to create another new page, and I'm going to call this our awesome blog. And that'll make sense here in a second. So now what I can do is I can come back over here to Settings Reading, which again is one of those first things I always come into. And now I'm actually going to set those pages statically. So I'm going to click on this that I want a static page for my home page. I don't want all my blogs out there. And I'm going to choose MAMP homepage as my homepage, but then my post page, I'm going to pick our awesome blog. And I'm going to leave all this stuff the same, and I'm going to hit Save Changes. So now we're on the homepage. There's no secondary page here. And when I refresh, the blogs go away, and it just says the name of my page, which is MAMP homepage. And then this is a sidebar with a bunch of stuff over here, which we'll look at in a second. But in general, the blogs are gone. And then if I go to, what do we call that thing? Our awesome blog. So we don't have a menu yet, which we'll fix here in a second. But I would just do / our awesome blog. I'm putting dashes because it's a slug. And if I hit enter, there we go. So now we're actually on the blog page that WordPress created for us. And that's the first blog. And then we should see Hello World. There we go. So both of our blogs are on that blog page, which is our awesome blog. And if I just click on the title up here, which is, it could be the logo if we set that up. Right now it's just the word, it's the name of the site. To go to the home page, it will bring us back to our MAMP homepage. And that's all done in the reading settings. So again, the first thing we do, jump into permalinks, make sure that's hunky-dory. And then I go into reading, and I've already typically built my homepage and my blog page. So I set those up. So now I can actually mess with that homepage and make it look nice. And then the last thing I do in here is I click on discussion. And so one of the things that is, because it's a blog by nature, WordPress is a blog platform by nature, it certainly was, is people commenting on your blog posts. So what also happens though, because that page is being used, that template, which we'll get into way later, is being used on multiple pages, you will see, well, as we can see from our home page, you can see comments. So we can see that comments are down there. It might be the sidebar, but certainly if we go to the blog page, the bottom of that has the ability to, oh, there's already a comment in here. So we can leave a comment if we wanted to on that post. And you may or may not want to do that. So you may or may not want to leave your blog post open for comments. So again, over here under settings and discussion, I sometimes will just uncheck this right out of the box. So I will not allow people to post comments on new articles. This should be done early on, because basically what happens is once you start blogging, if 50 of your blog posts were created before you uncheck this, then those are still going to allow comments. So it's something that you'll want to do up front to uncheck that if you don't want people to comment. A lot of times you want that conversation to happen, so you'll just go forward, you just leave it alone, leave it the default, and you'll let people comment. And then we did set that admin password earlier, so what you can also do is, not let people post if they've not already had an approved comment. And you can say that they all have to be manually approved. And then how you want to get notified. So you want to get emailed anytime somebody posts a comment, or that a comment is held for moderation. So you can play with those things. That discussion piece is important, and it's important to talk to the client, or to you figure out how you want people to interact with your site. The other thing I'll just look at really quickly is users. Now, right now, I'm the only user on this, but I'm typically building this either for a colleague or for a client. And so I will add them in there as a user. And it's as simple as hitting add new. You create them a new user, and then it will send them. I'll go ahead and click the button here. You create a username and their email. And then I typically have it send them a new email about the account. A lot of times these get stuck in spam. It's important to know. I always tell people to make sure you check your spam folder. But you can certainly send somebody a user notification. That way you don't have to deal with a password. You don't want to be emailing them their password. It's just inherently insecure. So WordPress will send them a link that will bring them to the site where they can create a user and password. You would have already set their username and email, but they will be brought to a screen where they can set their new password and save it and all that. So it's a much more clean way of doing that. Okay. So We've touched on posts. We've made the page. We're not going to deal with comments right now. Plugins, if you're not familiar, this is a beginning class, so you may not be familiar, but plugins are extra functionality that you can add to your site. So some of the more typical ones that I am always adding is gravity forms, advanced custom fields, and custom post types. Those are just kind of the knee-jerk ones that I always kind of put in here, because I'm always using gravity forms to build my forms. And then if the client needs some sort of a custom post or a custom field, I'll use those other two. And then of course WooCommerce is the e-commerce platform that I use, so that's I'm adding that quite often. And then WooCommerce has a bunch of add-ons to their particular plugin, so you can add USPS and UPS and FedEx and table rate shipping and all kinds of cool stuff. So this is where you're adding all of that functionality to the site. We're going to go into appearance next, and basically what the kind of the three primary things you're doing in here are themes, and a theme is basically the layout and structure and general look and feel of your site. So just as an example, let's just go look at the home page. I'm going to go back up here and go to the home page. So this is generally what it looks like, and this is a 2019 theme. So if I switch over to the 2017 theme just by simply clicking activate, so now the 2017 is active. You can see it says so right here. When I go to the front of the site and hit refresh, the look is completely different. Now we have this plant on a table, which was provided with the 2017 theme, and then we have essentially what's a blank home page. And then if I hit the back button, which is going to bring me back to our blog page, and I hit refresh, now we've got this cute little header. Our sidebar is much more clean, in my opinion. And then we have all of our text, and then we should see the other one. Here we go. There's a hello world. So it's very different layout, and that's just by changing the theme. And I guess while we're right here, we might as well switch over to 2016 as well. I'm going to hit activate. You would obviously never do this on a live site, but it's kind of fun to do here. So let's see how our blog changes. I'm going to hit refresh. Now we have this weird black border around our site. In general, the sidebar stayed the same. We are way indented all of a sudden with our comments over here. So let's go down to the other one. Yep, here you go. So we're still indented and comments and stuff. So the other thing you'll notice is if you remember back, I think it was like the second, maybe second or third video that we did, I think it was number 3, we created a post and we gave it some background color. Well, obviously it's not here. You know, obviously we made this bold, which stuck in there, but I believe this whole paragraph had a blue background, and then this whole paragraph, I believe, was just straight up blue, the text itself. So what you're seeing is, since we've changed themes from 2019 to 2016, all that styling is gone. And there are a million themes out there. If you hit add new, you'll see, and these are going to be, for the most part, these are going to be all themes from WordPress. So you could scroll and dig around in here for days, because there are just tons and tons and tons of themes. We at Mad Cow Web typically use Beaver Builder, or we build a custom theme. Those are the kind of the two options. We kind of love Beaver Builder because of the flexibility it gives us, and the theme itself is very vanilla and very clean, so that we're able to add our styles and our layouts without having to fight against the theme. So that theme is a whole different discussion. But anyway, I just wanted to show you what happens if we bounce back and forth. I'm tempted to just add one of these just for kicks to see what happens, but let's not bother right now. Okay, and then so there's our themes. We're going to skip customize right this second, but we are going to go to menus. And what a menu is, it's the way to organize your stuff. On most websites that you see, there are menus at the very top. If we go to this Bacon Ipsum that I was going to use a minute ago, they have a menu. This is probably a WordPress theme, but here's a menu right at the top of theirs. So what we want to do is create our own menu. And so I'll come in here and call it something creative like main menu. And I'll create that menu. And then I will add some items to it. Maybe I'll just add the home page and the blog. And then maybe sort them by dragging. And then make it my primary menu and save. So now what we should see is something show up here as a navigation when I refresh. And there we go. So I can go to the home page now, or I can go to the blog. And remember, we don't have anything on our home page, so it's blank. So I will warn you about something with changing themes. This is why you would never do this when you've been live for a little while, is if you change back to, let's go back to our 2019 theme, and then we refresh the home page, everything kind of moves around. So now we're back to the other layout that I wasn't really a big fan of, and now our nav is up here, and I'm actually very curious if our styles stayed. Yeah, so our styles did stay with that theme, but everything else changed. The nav changed and everything else changes. So we just want to be very careful in changing themes once you're live. That's the only kind of warning there, if you will. Okay. And then the last thing I want to look at, I'm actually going to go back to, I think 2016, because it's really nice and simple. Perfect. So now we have our text, and we have our sidebar over here. And I did that because I want to talk about widgets. So in the left-hand side, we have themes, customized widgets, menus that we just messed with. And then in this particular theme, you'll see that header and background show up, which is very different than when we were in 2019. Those things aren't there. So every theme will also have some custom things over here as well. So don't expect that to always be the same. Nor will all of these menu items, these big menu items over here, be the same. Because as you add WooCommerce, there's one of those menu items shows up for WooCommerce, and then one shows up for products. And if you add Gravity Forms, one shows up for your forms. So you'll see that net left-hand side navigation change quite a bit. But for right now, let's go and look at widgets. We have a couple of widget areas, which is what these things are called. This sidebar, and this content bottom 1, and this content bottom 2. So this particular theme, which is 2016, if I go back over here to themes, we're in the 2016 theme, and I go back to widgets. This particular theme has 3 widget areas. And so if I look at the front of the site, I can see there's a search, recent posts, recent comments, archives, categories, meta. And here we go. Search, recent posts, recent comments, archives, categories, meta. So if I change these, if I put meta up top just by dragging it, and then I refresh the front of the site, we should see this block. It's not really a block. I don't want to use that for Gutenberg. This widget should move. It should go to the top. And there we go. So now meta is up at top. So again, one of those, the point of this video being a lot of the first things that I do on a site is I just get rid of a lot of these things. I don't really want to have comments in there. What is archives? Archives is showing us all the posts from October, and then once we roll into November, because it's 27th, we'll see November 2019. So it will show you all of the archived posts for that month, and we don't want to see that. And then categories, our only category currently is uncategorized because we haven't put our blog posts in there, so I don't really care too much about that either. So, but then over here on the left, you see all kinds of neat little optional widgets, and as you add plugins, more widgets show up. So one of the more simple ones is just text, and you can do one or two things. Just because it's the way it used to work, I tend to grab these things and drag them into my widget area, and that works just perfectly fine. The other option you have is you can just use the drop down, and it'll give you the options of where you want it to go. So for example, if you wanted a text widget in your content bottom 1 widget area, you just hit that and it shows up in there for you. So you can get those things in there either way. And then what this is just a text widget. So you can say, this is the title of my widget, And then I will use our awesome Bacon Ipsum. So here is some text for our widget area. And I think we should probably have a carriage return. Like so. So now all we have in there is search and text. And so if we go back over here and hit refresh, now we have our search widget, and then we have my custom widget with our Bacon Ipsum in there. The other thing that happened here, by the way, is that we put a text widget in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one down into this widget area. So now this text widget with our Bacon Ipsum is in the content bottom one. And let's just go see if that actually did anything. So if I refresh, it should go away from here. And if I scroll to the bottom of this page, so it's not showing up down here yet. So that means we don't have a widget area set for our footer. And that's just a matter of tweaking the theme and moving things around, and we can just do that in a different video. But for now, because we do have a sidebar, I'm going to put it back up here in the sidebar. And as soon as I refresh, boom, now we get it back there. Okay, so post and pages, appearance, we did themes, we'll get to customize in a second. We just did widgets, we did menus, header and background are custom to 2016. We talked about plugins, and we talked about settings, reading, discussion, and permalinks. So in general, those are the big ones. What I want to talk about next is the media folder. Essentially, any image that you want to add to your site, you will just dump in here. And it's just literally as simple as dragging an image off of your desktop and dropping it inside the media library. And then if you click on that image, it will show you the size of it, the dimensions as far as the layout, and you can add a title and a caption and a description, and then it'll actually show you the path. So it's in this content, uploads, 2019-10, and then I believe the file is called just dogs. Yeah, so really cool. Dogs hanging out playing poker. So that's how you get stuff into your media folder. And then when you're on an actual post, like my awesome hike as an example, if you go to edit that post, and then if you were to add an image with this little plus sign here, you can add a block. Maybe not to the very top. Maybe we'll put a block down here. And I want to add a single image. I have the option to upload something, or I can pick right from the media library. So now that I've put the dogs in there, if I click media library, there they are. I can just choose my dogs, plop them in there, and then there's a million ways you can mess with this. You've got the dimensions over here. You've got these drag and drop icons on the image, so you can make it as large or small as you want. Heck, we can center it from right here. So you have all kinds of options that you can do to that block. And then I'm just going to update it and then go back to our post on the front of the site. And there we go. Now our dogs are in the post. So the media library is a great place it is the place to put all of your images, and you can put PDFs in here as well. And then if you're using SVG files, you can add a plugin that will allow you to put SVGs in here as well. So that's the other super handy piece of that. All right, I believe that's it for the main navigation or main dashboard.